The night in Wellington was calm, with a soft breeze drifting in from the harbor. The golden lights of the waterfront reflected gently on the water, and inside a small cafe tucked between narrow streets, Ethan sat across from Maya. Their table was placed near the window, giving them a perfect view of the city alive with quiet charm. For Ethan, it was supposed to be an ordinary evening. He had been with Maya for almost 2 years, and dinner together had become their simple ritual after long weeks of work. She worked at a gallery, often surrounded by art and silence, while he was an architect, busy with deadlines and sketches. Tonight was meant to be lighthearted. He had even brought a small gift, hidden in his coat pocket. Maya looked especially radiant that night. Her long dark hair fell naturally over her shoulders, and she had chosen a pale blue dress that seemed to glow under the cafe lights. Ethan watched her smile faintly as she stirred her tea, though there was a trace of something distant in her eyes that he could not quite place. The cafe was quiet except for the gentle hum of conversations from a few other tables. A waitress named Sophie moved between customers, her presence both discreet and graceful. When she reached their table, Ethan noticed the way she glanced at Maya. It was not the usual glance of a server checking on her guests. There was something else in her eyes, something that carried weight. She leaned slightly toward Maya, lowering her voice. Ethan could not hear the words, only saw the subtle tightening of Maya's expression. Her fingers froze on the spoon, and her smile faded instantly. Whatever Sophie whispered, it struck her deeply. Maya's hand trembled as she set her cup down, the soft clink sounding louder than it should have. Ethan leaned forward, concerned. "Maya, are you all right?" he asked gently. But Maya did not answer him. Her eyes fixed on Sophie, wide and unsettled. Sophie gave a small, almost apologetic nod, then walked away without looking back. The silence between Ethan and Maya grew heavier. She finally rose from her chair, her face pale as if all warmth had drained from it. She whispered only 4 words before leaving the cafe, her voice cracking under their weight. "I cannot do this." Ethan sat frozen, watching as she walked swiftly out into the Wellington night. His chest tightened, confusion and dread gripping him. What had Sophie said? Why had Maya looked at him as if everything she believed had suddenly collapsed? The gift in his pocket felt heavier than ever, and in that moment, Ethan realized his evening had transformed into the beginning of something far darker than he could understand. Ethan rushed out of the cafe, but by the time he reached the pavement, Maya was gone. The Wellington streets glimmered with rain-slick cobblestones, reflecting the lamps like shards of broken glass. He searched for her familiar figure, yet all he found were strangers hurrying past, umbrellas tilted against the drizzle. His pulse pounded. Maya had never left him like that before. She was calm, patient, never dramatic. The way she had looked at him, though, as if he were a stranger, haunted his mind. Ethan turned back toward the cafe. Sophie was still working, moving between tables, as if nothing had happened. He waited until she came near, then caught her gaze. "What did you say to her?" Ethan demanded quietly, trying to keep his voice steady. Sophie paused, her hands tightening on the tray she held. For a second, her lips parted as if to answer, but instead she shook her head. "I cannot tell you," she whispered, and walked swiftly toward the kitchen. The refusal cut through him. He wanted to push further, but something about her eyes warned him off. It was not the look of someone hiding gossip. It was something deeper, heavier, as though she carried a burden too dangerous to share. Ethan left the cafe and wandered the streets, hoping to find Maya. He called her phone again and again, but each time the call rang out until her voicemail picked up. No message came back. That night, Ethan lay awake in his flat, the sound of the rain against his window keeping him company. Questions tore through his thoughts. What had Sophie whispered? Why had Maya abandoned him without explanation? And why did it feel as though the ground beneath his life had begun to shift, inch by inch, into darkness? The next morning, Maya was still gone. Her belongings remained in their shared apartment, but she was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had simply stepped out of their life together, carrying only the weight of a secret that Sophie had placed in her hands. As the day turned into evening, Ethan returned to the flat. The gift he had planned to give Maya, the small silver necklace, still lay in his pocket. He held it tightly, as though the cold metal could anchor him against the storm of uncertainty. But when he placed it on the table, he noticed something else. Maya's diary, usually kept tucked away, lay half open on the sofa. A page was marked with a folded corner, as if she had left it behind in a rush. With trembling hands, Ethan picked it up and began to read. The handwriting on the diary page was delicate, yet rushed, as though Maya had written it with a trembling hand. Ethan scanned the words, his breath quickening with every line. "I thought I left it behind in Auckland. I thought no one here would ever know. But she recognized me. How long until Ethan finds out the truth? How long until everything falls apart?" Ethan froze. Auckland? Maya had always told him she grew up in Christchurch, that she had never lived in Auckland. Why would she lie about something so simple? And who was she that Maya mentioned? His heart thudded as he turned more pages, but most entries were vague, filled with reflections on her days, mentions of exhibitions at the gallery, and quiet thoughts about their life together. Only that single page carried the tone of panic. The name Sophie appeared nowhere. Yet Ethan could not shake the feeling that the waitress was the she Maya had written about. That night, sleep was impossible. He kept picturing Maya's face as she left the cafe, pale and stricken, as if one whisper had shattered her entire world. The next morning, Ethan decided he could not sit idle any longer. He returned once more to the cafe. Sophie was wiping tables when he walked in, and the look on her face when she saw him was unmistakable. She knew he had read something. "You recognized her," Ethan said coldly. "From Auckland. Did you know her before?" Sophie's lips pressed into a thin line. For a long moment, she said nothing, then finally whispered, "Yes. But if she has not told you herself, it is not my place." "You destroyed us with a single sentence," Ethan hissed, his anger spilling over. "If there is something I need to know, you had better tell me." Sophie's eyes filled with regret. "Ethan, I never meant to hurt you, but Maya's past is dangerous. If it catches up with her, it will catch up with you too. That is why she left." Before Ethan could reply, Sophie's manager called her to the counter, pulling her away. Ethan stood rooted to the spot, the words echoing in his head. Dangerous. Past. Catch up. He stepped out of the cafe, his mind spinning. Whatever truth Sophie was holding back, it was tearing Maya from him. And unless he uncovered it, he feared he might lose her forever. Ethan could not focus on work, could not eat, could not think of anything except the fragments Sophie had left him with. Maya's past. Dangerous. A truth hidden in Auckland. The words refused to leave him, circling endlessly in his thoughts. That evening, he walked through the city, the harbor lights flickering like restless stars. Eventually, his feet carried him to the gallery where Maya worked. It was closed, but he pressed his face to the glass, peering inside. The empty room stared back, filled with silent paintings and cold shadows. He noticed her office door slightly ajar. A cleaner passed by and left the door unlocked. Ethan hesitated only for a moment before slipping inside. The office was simple, with sketches and notes scattered across the desk. Among them, Ethan spotted a small folder, half hidden under a pile of papers. He opened it, his pulse hammering. Inside were photocopies of documents, old ones. A birth certificate, a school record, a faded driver's license. The name printed on them was not Maya. It was Amelia Clark. Ethan staggered back, his stomach twisting. Amelia Clark. Who was she? Why had Maya changed her name? He ran his hands through his hair, trying to breathe. The diary entry made sense now. She had left Auckland, but not just the city. She had left behind her identity. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Ethan quickly returned the folder, slipping out just before the security guard passed by. The night air felt sharp and hostile as he stumbled into the street, his chest tight with confusion. If Maya was Amelia, then who exactly had he loved all this time? His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message appeared, and signed, "Stop digging. For your own sake." Ethan froze, staring at the screen. The number was unknown. His fingers trembled as he reread the words. Someone was watching him. Someone knew he was searching. For the first time, Ethan felt a true chill of fear. The message lingered in Ethan's mind like a shadow. He reread it again and again, as if the words might change. But they did not. Stop digging. For your own sake. Sleep abandoned him that night. He sat by the window, staring out at Wellington's quiet streets, every passing car light making him flinch. Who had sent the message? Sophie? Maya? Or someone else entirely? By morning, exhaustion had etched deep lines across his face. Yet his determination had only hardened. He needed answers, and he knew where to begin: Auckland. If Maya had once lived there under a different name, then someone in that city might know why she had erased her past. Before leaving, he stopped once more at the cafe. Sophie was serving a couple at the counter, but her eyes flicked nervously toward him. Ethan approached slowly, lowering his voice. "I found the documents," he murmured. "Amelia Clark. That is who Maya really is, isn't it?" Sophie's face drained of color. She dropped the pen she had been holding, and it clattered to the floor. Without picking it up, she whispered, "Ethan, you must not say that name aloud. Not here." His pulse raced. Why not? Her eyes darted around the room before fixing on him. Because if the wrong people hear you, you will both be in danger. Maya left Auckland for a reason. She was running from something, someone, who would never stop looking for her. Ethan leaned closer, his voice sharp. "Tell me who." But Sophie only shook her head, her hands trembling. "I have already said too much. If you truly care for her, leave it alone." Ethan's frustration burned, but her fear seemed real. Still, he could not stop now. He had to know what Maya had been hiding and who was threatening her life enough to abandon him without a word. That night, Ethan packed a small bag. The first light of dawn would see him on the road to Auckland. Somewhere in that city lay the truth about Maya, or Amelia, that could either save her or destroy everything they had left. The road to Auckland stretched long and restless, the landscape rolling past as Ethan drove with heavy eyes and a heavier heart. Every kilometer carried him closer to answers, yet closer also to dangers he could not name. The warning message still echoed in his mind, but silence was no longer an option. By evening, he arrived in the city. Auckland was larger, louder, its skyline a mix of glass towers and crowded streets. Ethan booked a small room in a quiet motel near the edge of town. The room was plain, but its stillness allowed him to think. He began his search with the documents he had seen: Amelia Clark. The birth certificate carried an address in an older part of the city. With little choice, Ethan went there the next morning. The house was small, its paint faded, its garden overgrown. He knocked once, twice, then a third time. Finally, the door opened, revealing an older woman with tired eyes. "Yes?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I am looking for Amelia Clark," Ethan said carefully. The woman stiffened. For a moment, she said nothing, then narrowed her gaze. "Who are you?" "I am her partner," Ethan replied. "But I knew her as Maya. Please, I just need to understand." The woman's expression softened slightly, though suspicion lingered. "Amelia has always been running. You must be careful, young man. If you love her, you should have let her go." Ethan's chest tightened. Running from what? The woman hesitated, glancing behind her as though afraid of being overheard. Then she whispered, "From a man who once controlled her life. A man she should never have crossed." Ethan's heart pounded. "Who?" But the woman shook her head. "I have said enough. Go back to Wellington before it is too late." She shut the door, leaving Ethan on the porch, his breath clouding in the cool air. He turned away slowly, his mind racing. If Maya had been fleeing from someone dangerous, then Sophie's warning made sense. But who was this man? And why did it feel as if Ethan was being watched even now, as he stood in the quiet street of Auckland, the shadows stretching longer around him? Ethan walked quickly back to his car, the woman's words weighing heavily on his chest. A man who once controlled her life. The phrase struck like an echo of something darker than jealousy or a broken relationship. He climbed into the driver's seat and paused, trying to steady his breath. Then he noticed it, a piece of paper tucked beneath the windscreen wiper. His stomach clenched as he reached for it. The note was short, written in hurried strokes. "You are looking in the wrong places. Meet me at the old ferry terminal tonight. Alone." Ethan's pulse hammered. Was it a trap? Or the only chance at truth? That night, the terminal was deserted, its once busy hall now echoing with silence and the sound of waves slapping against the docks. The faint smell of rust and seaweed hung in the air. Ethan's footsteps echoed as he entered, his senses sharpened by unease. A shadow moved in the corner. A man stepped forward, tall, his coat pulled tight against the wind. His face was unfamiliar, but his presence radiated something sharp, something dangerous. "You should have stayed away," the man said, his voice low and cold. "Amelia does not belong to you. She never did." Ethan's fists clenched. "Who are you?" The man gave a thin smile. "Someone who once owned every choice she made. She ran, but she cannot hide forever. And you, by chasing her, you have dragged yourself into the fire." Ethan's heart thundered. "If you ever cared for her, you will leave her alone." The man's expression darkened, his voice tightening. "Care for her? No. She owes me, and I always collect my debts." Before Ethan could respond, the man stepped back into the shadows, disappearing into the hollow shell of the terminal. Only his words lingered, curling in Ethan's mind like smoke. "She owes me." The night pressed down heavier than ever, and Ethan realized the truth was even more dangerous than he had feared. Maya's secret past was not just a shadow, it was a threat that had followed her across cities, into their very lives. Ethan left the terminal with his chest tight and his thoughts racing. The man's words clung to him like chains. "She owes me. I always collect my debts." Whoever he was, his grip on Maya, or Amelia, had been real, and it had not ended when she fled Auckland. Back in his motel, Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone in his hand. He dialed Maya's number again, though he knew it would not connect. To his shock, this time the line clicked. For a moment there was only silence, then a faint, trembling voice. "Ethan?" It was Maya. Relief flooded through him. "Maya, thank God. Where are you? What happened? Please, just talk to me." Her breath hitched through the receiver. "You should not have come here. He will know. He always knows." Ethan pressed harder. "I met him. At the ferry terminal. He said you owe him." "What does that mean?" There was a long pause, then Maya's voice cracked. "I made a mistake years ago. I trusted him. I signed things I should never have signed, things that gave him control over everything I had. When I tried to break free, he turned on me. I had to disappear. Change my name. Start again." Her words fell heavy, each one carving into Ethan's understanding of the woman he loved. She was not simply Maya, the quiet gallery worker. She was Amelia Clark, a woman who had lived under the shadow of a man who claimed to own her life. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking. "Because I wanted at least one part of my life to be real," Maya whispered. "With you, I was Maya. Not Amelia. Not his property. Just me." But Sophie recognized me that night at the cafe. When she whispered the truth, I knew everything was over. Ethan closed his eyes, fighting the ache in his chest. "It is not over. Not if we face it together." But Maya's voice turned sharp with fear. "No, Ethan. If you stay with me, he will destroy you too. You need to let me go." The line went dead. Ethan sat frozen, the silence louder than any storm. He knew what she wanted, but he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. He could not let her vanish again. The next morning, Ethan drove through Auckland with a restless urgency. He replayed Maya's trembling words over and over, her plea for him to let her go. But letting go was not in his nature. Not now. The old ferry terminal lingered in his thoughts. The man had appeared there once. Perhaps he would return. Ethan steered the car back, the rising sun casting long shadows across the docks. When he stepped inside, the air felt colder than before. His footsteps echoed through the empty hall, but he was not alone. At the far end, Maya stood, her figure silhouetted against the pale light spilling through the windows. "Maya," Ethan breathed. She turned slowly, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of sorrow and fear. "Ethan, you should not be here." Before he could answer, another presence emerged from the shadows. The same tall man from the night before. His eyes glinted with cold satisfaction. "I told you," he said softly, his voice cutting through the silence, "she owes me. And now, you have brought yourself to me as well." Ethan stepped in front of Maya, his fists clenched. "If you want her, you will have to go through me." The man's smile was thin and cruel. "Brave, but foolish. You cannot fight what you do not understand." He reached into his coat, pulling out a folder thick with papers. He held it up like a weapon. "Every debt, every contract, every mistake she made, it all belongs to me. You think you can erase the past? The past does not forgive." Maya's voice broke. "Please stop. You have taken enough from me." The man's eyes hardened. "Not yet." In that moment, Ethan realized the battle was not just physical. It was truth against lies, freedom against control. He stepped closer, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "You cannot own her," he said. "Not anymore." The man's jaw tightened, his hand trembling with fury as he gripped the folder. For the first time, his composure cracked, revealing the depth of obsession beneath. And in that fragile crack, Ethan saw the only chance they had. The terminal seemed to hold its breath, the air sharp with tension, as the three of them stood locked in a silence that could shatter at any moment.